Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You can even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. Hey guys, welcome to Creative Space Podcast. I am your host, truly, Rhys, and on today's podcast is none other than Charles Busch. Charles and I sit down to talk about his career, his journeys and his ups and downs, how he went on from working in off-Broadway or off-Broadway to struggling a bit and then rising to the top to being nominated for a Tony Award, work with many successful people. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but we don't want to do that. We don't want to spoil the podcast for you, and we want you to listen and really enjoy it. And he was such a pleasant person to be interviewed and to talk to. He was so much fun, and he was a character. He was such a character. It was really good. So without further ado, let's get on to it. It's me and Charles Busch on Creative Space Podcast. One of the reasons I asked you to come on the show is because my fiance is more of a fan than me. She was saying to me, we learned this, we learned a couple of plays from Charles Busch in university, and I was like, really? Oh, what's he done then? And obviously it's like Dying When We Die and a few other things. And she's like, you got to get him on there. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she turned on and went, have you ever had a drag queen on the show before, or someone who's done drag? And I went, no, I don't know. And she went, well, there you go. Make history. Go and make history.
Okay, I'll try not to be disappointing. Yeah.
No, I got to mention this as well. So me and my fiance, we went out last night, and it was the first time in a long time that we haven't spent time together because we've been so busy. And one of the things that we normally do is because I live in Barry, and it's we go into the Cardiff in the capital, and in Cardiff there's a pub that we go to called the Golden Cross, and it don't matter to us. It's a gay pub, loads of drag acts on stage and everything, and we love going there all the time. And they had a brilliant, I can't remember her name though, brilliant act that was on last night, and Emily just turned to me and went, how many questions are you going to ask Charles about drag acts and everything? And I just went, I think too much.
Because the thing is, I've had such a strange career because, most of the plays that I've written, I have performed the female lead, but I guess I'm not really a drag queen as such.
No.
Not that I have anything against drag queens.
Yeah.
I'll come and get you if you say you do. So, no, it's just, I mean, it's interesting. In New York, where I'm basically where I traffic, I've been embraced both by the drag community as a kind of grandmother, godmother, but mainly I'm in the Broadway theater community is really kind of my world. But it's I'm proud to be embraced by both.
Yeah. What made you want to go into theater then in the first place? Was it just from the very young age that you just love theater, the musicals, etc., or what was it that I'm trying to get at?
Wanted to be noticed, wanted to be special, didn't want to be invisible. I really think that was it. But then I was exposed to theater at a very young age. My father desperately wanted to be an opera singer, and he had a very, very nice voice, but to be a professional opera singer, I mean, you have to really, be so superior, and it requires, enormous discipline, which he did not have. And so he loved theater and classic film. And so I was exposed at a very early age to that. And he was always doing community theater or, summer theater. And then when my mother died when I was 7, and I really was raised by my mother's older sister, my Aunt Lillian, and she had cultural interests as well, but more importantly, recognized them in me. And she really was my parent. She adopted me, and what I'm so grateful is that I think whatever interest I had, she would have embraced and cultivated. Whether if I had been interested in sports or science or outer space, whatever. But in this case, it was theater and movies and all that. And so she just cultivated it like I was one of her plants that she grew. Figured out what's the best soil to plant me in.
So what was the reason then to go into writing plays and performing them in yourself? Was it because sometimes some writers do it because they didn't get the parts themselves, so they thought, well, I'm gonna go and write my own and be in my own performances. Was that it, or was there other reasons?
That's it. You nailed it, honey. You nailed it. No, yeah. I mean, I had vague notions as a child and adolescent that I was going to be in show business, in the theater, but I wasn't so, and I assumed it'd be as an actor. Really, that's what I really wanted. But I was always writing. I mean, I was bad in school and so invisible in the classroom, and yet I was at 11 years old writing 3-act plays. I don't quite know why my teachers thought I was so, lacking. But I sound terribly bitter, don't I? I am bitter. I'm bitter, Rhys. Anyway, anyway, when I went to university, I guess we call it college here in America. I was majoring in theater, but this is 1972, and I was never cast in a play. And I had a kind of androgynous kind of quality, kind of gay, and there were no roles. This is in the early 70s. There was no dramatic literature that had gay characters, really. And if they did, it was something very negative. And then I finally realized that if I was going to there were no roles that I wanted to play. Not roles that I was not even cast in, but there were no roles I fantasized about playing. And I thought I am a writer. I always loved writing, and I thought I'll just write parts for myself, which I think it's very important to think of what is it that you have to offer. It's very easy for us to say, oh, I can't do this and I'm bad at that, and I'm so hopeless at that. But I think it's a good mindset to think, well, what do I have to offer? And I thought I did have something to offer if that I had a gift for evoking classic actresses the golden age of Hollywood. I just had a gift for impersonation of the voices and mannerisms, but that went even beyond just like a imitation. I could kind of channel Betty Davis and Rosalind Russell and Susan Hayward, people you've probably never heard of, but so I had that in me, and I figured I could very realistically portray women because I could tap into the feminine within me just so easily. I didn't have to, work at it. Just was like I didn't need the drag. I didn't need it. I still don't. I don't. I've done a lot of my roles on radio, or in stage readings, where we don't perform in costume. And although I love, I love coming up with different looks that are exactly right for the period, but I don't need it to convince me or even the audience that I'm that lady. I just do it. And I've also, while my work is largely comic, it was always important to me that there should be a certain amount of pathos, feeling. My plays often have their basis in as an homage to a certain movie genre, like I've done just the biblical epic, or I've done the 1940s wartime melodrama, different things. But it's important for me that they're not only that we're having fun with the excesses of those movies, but make them genuinely suspenseful, genuinely touching, so that the audience has the same emotions as if they were actually just watching the old movie.
What is the fascination for you then to go into being inspired by the classic movies of the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, etc.? What put you in awe, inspired to put, when you write your plays, put basis from them? What was it?
Well, there is a strong self fantasy element to my work. A lot of times I've started off the whole project just thinking, oh, wouldn't it be fun to be Barbara Stanwyck in a early 1930s mother love melodrama? Wouldn't that be, since I'd say, oh gosh, out of the 28 plays I've written, some I haven't been in, but the ones that are the majority I've written for myself, let's say maybe 22 out of 28 or something like that. But they often just start off with a kind of a daydream of, oh, wouldn't it be fun to be this lady? So it kind of goes back to all of the old movies that I watched as a child, and also theater history was so important to me from a very early age. I was fascinated by the actresses who were great stars in the theater who chose in most cases not to do movies, that their commitment was the theater, and they turned down numerous offers. These are people with the names of that many are sort of forgotten today because they did not do film, were great stars in the 20s through the 50s. Laura Taylor, Catherine Cornell, Lynn Fontanne, and reading about them and seeing their pictures, their photos, and reading about them, I found it almost more fascinating to dream about them than the actresses who I could watch on television in old movies, because these stage actresses, I really had to use my imagination and imagine what their voices were like or what these plays could be. I found that fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because we see actors today, and there's something very natural the way they project and speak and approach the dialogue, and then you look into the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and they're very like you said, melodramatic actors, like, oh, what's going on here? What's it's this that tone, and it's always changed, and I always found it interesting how far films and even theater have come from the 30s onward to the present, where the tone has changed a lot. I don't know.
I think with high def and with their extreme naturalism, perhaps we've lost a little bit of enchantment. maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe there was
lost a bit of magic.
something about those, seeing these actors in silvery black and white, and who acted in a somewhat more stylized vocal tone and posture, was rather dreamlike, and
Mm.
so in a way, those iconic stars from the past in some ways shine brighter than the ones we have today, because and I think it's unfair in a way comparing the stars of today to the past. I'm often asked that, and people always want, when I get interviewed, they want me to be negative. They want me to be some sort of old fuddy-duddy and say, "Oh, the past is so much better," and all that. And I think it's unfair. I think one wonders if the actresses today, Angelina Jolie, or more recent ones, let's say, who should we say, Jessica Chastain, should we say, Margot
Mm.
Robbie,
Yeah.
very talented, very beautiful. Perhaps if they had been back in making films in the 1930s, and we only knew them from what the movie studios want us to know, and creating this illusion, and we see them in gorgeous black and white, and it's also controlled, maybe those actresses would be on the same plane as the ones from the past.
Where did the camp style come from? When I was doing the research, camp style and your name was sort of coming together. So I wanted to know from your perspective of where did that term or theater style come from?
Oh gosh, I don't know. The word camp is so broad, really. I mean, there's so many different styles, and I mean, on one hand, I do think that, like when you think about certain campy movies, there's certain movies that are camp, like Mommy Dearest or Valley of the Dolls. These are, from the past. I think there's a camp quality there because they didn't intend it to be. Both Valley of the Dolls and Mommy Dearest were outrageous best-selling books, and I think the people who made those film adaptations thought, oh, this is very important, serious movie we're making, and yet it came out so outrageous and excessive that there's a differential between intent and what they put out, or intent or how it's perceived. That's actually better, and so therefore it's sort of camp. But then there are other things that were intended as camp, or involving parody. Movies, I don't know, like John Waters films, or films that have their basis in parody, whatever. Those are camp by design.
Mm.
So I mean, it's I don't know. Sometimes I think that there are certain things are camp because of just rather interesting concepts of somebody with wearing a mask, like in an old movie, the great lady who actually was like a kind of tough as nails chorus girl, before, and occasionally, while she's being very grand, so something she drops it and starts talking like like she used to do. And that sort of camp. I mean, it's very complicated.
Mm.
It's very complicated.
The way we're talking about it just reminds me of how when we're talking about styles, there's so many styles in theater now, or so many techniques, etc. And it keeps reminds me of the time that I looked up a story where can't remember the film, can't remember what it was called, but it had Laurence Olivier and Dustin Hoffman in it, and it's that old famous
Marathon Man.
Marathon Man, and it was just that famous scene where a famous story that Dustin Hoffman was like, "How do I get into this character? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I challenge it?" And Laurence Olivier, the veteran actor, Oscar winner, the king of Shakespeare at the time, was going, "Try acting."
I think so these famous stories, are so many versions out there. I think one version I'd heard was that Dustin Hoffman had to come in breathless in the scene that he had just come in from running, and so he actually, to be realistic, ran like a mile to get to the set, so he truly was so out of breath, and and sweating and everything. And I think that's when Olivier said, "Why not try just acting, dear boy?" But I think you can see both sides.
Oh yeah.
Because the thing about film, and I've done a couple, is just that basically you're doing it once. It's not like you're doing a play 8 times a week for months. You're getting the shot in once. I mean, you get several takes, or you get until you get it right, but that's like it. So I can sort of understand where someone like Dustin Hoffman might say, well, if I wanted to really get a really realistic, for this one shot, I'll run the mile. I mean, it seems a little excessive, but I kind of get it.
Yeah. I've always, from doing my research on you, Charles, it seems that you are one of the definitions of a hardworking writer, actor, director, etc. From a career, looking at your career, and there's the rise and the falls and the
The
rises
fall.
again. Yeah. Well,
Oh,
from
I guess that's
when I
true.
say yeah, what I
I
meant by
have fallen.
yeah.
I've risen again like a phoenix.
Well, what I meant by fall is that there was a period where, if I can get this right, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is where my research needs to come in. You did a play cast, or was it Alone with a Cast of Thousands, and it ran for a few years, but then afterwards, there was a point where work wasn't in the theater wasn't coming your way, and then you had to work odd jobs to make ends meet. Am I right in saying that, or is that?
No, not exactly. You're sort of right. No, it was just all at the same time. No, I was. Now it seems like not that long. At the time, it seemed like a century. But basically, from when I got out of school, for like the next, it probably was 9 years, basically until I was 31. I was very much struggling, and I didn't know. How do you start a career writing your own and starring in your own plays? I mean, where's the playbook to do that? I don't know. So I thought I would basically be a solo performer, do monologues and solo plays, because that way I didn't need to hire a cast, or I could try to book myself in small nonprofit theaters or cabarets, whatever. So I kept changing my repertoire. I often called it Alone with a Cast of Thousands, but there were different pieces that I would do, and I really was alone. I was traveling to all sorts of strange places, but I could never earn a living doing that. And so for those 10 years, it was hard, because I kept feeling that if I just kept at it and kept growing and learning, that eventually would work out. I did have kind of demented faith in myself, but it was hard when I would do my solo show at some small theater, 30 seats or something, but I'd get nice reviews, and the audience is really responding, and people treat me with respect. And then I'd come back to New York and be back to being an office worker part-time, or receptionist in a zipper factory, or all sorts of crazy jobs. And then the main thing I did for income is that I have a natural talent for drawing people. And so I worked as a quick sketch portrait artist, working in pastel, and oh God, any which way I could. I worked at different street fairs, and so for a while, I got hired through an agency called Rent-A-Witch that booked tarot card readers in Palmas to birthday parties and weddings, and so they sent me out as a psychic portrait artist. So I would draw you as you were in your previous life. So I tried anything just to pay the rent, and then finally in 1984, I felt like I'd been at it for decades, and I was, I guess, 31, and was very discouraged. Just at that point, I saw a friend perform her performance piece in a very odd, rather dangerous neighborhood in New York City, on the Lower East Side, and it was kind of burnt out buildings, a lot of crack vials on the street. It was, however, the rents were very low, commercial rents. So these very avant-garde art galleries or dance clubs started emerging in the rubble, and it was the same period basically where Madonna came out of, and the artist Keith Haring, and it was a very fertile, exciting period. And so my friends and I very quickly wrote this little kind of a sketch. It was about a half hour long, and I had to call it something. So I called it Vampire Lesbians of Sodom. And I decided I was not in drag in my solo act. I would just be in basically what I'm wearing now, a black shirt and black pants, and just play men and women just by changing faces and voices. But the Limbo Lounge, this club where I got us booked, was so outrageous, and the audience was so goth and punk, and so I thought I have to be as flamboyant as the audience at least. And I thought, maybe I'll just play one part. I'll just play the female character, in this case, this glamorous vampire, ageless vampire. And so that was the idea. And it was supposed to be just for 2 nights, and it took off. It just took off. I was in the right place at the right time for the first time. And it was all just, the group were all just my best friends that I'd picked up, throughout my life, and in some cases from adolescence. And it just somehow people just loved that show, and we tried to get producers to transfer it to a commercial theater, and no one would touch it. So we just raised the money ourselves fairly quickly, and opened at a small theater in Greenwich Village here in New York City. And we had raised just enough money to open. But fortunately, we got these rave reviews, particularly by the very powerful New York Times, which in New York is basically the one paper you need. And the show was a big hit and ran 5 years, and established me overnight as a playwright, actor. And from that, I mean, I will never have an opening night as important as that, even though I've had them on Broadway and more glamorous. But the fact that the day before I couldn't earn a living, and the day after I could, and that was so meaningful to me. And it's just, as funny as years later, I was walking down the street, and I saw 2 men were coming toward me, and we were passing by, and one of them I knew was a journalist, and he introduced me to the man with him, and it turned out it was the critic from the New York Times who gave us that initial review. And I kind of lost it and was very emotional. I said, "Oh, Mr. Bruckner," I said, you don't know what this was years later, this 15 years. And I said, "You don't know what you did for me. My life is really, I owe it all to you. I've had the most wonderful life." And I got all teary, and he was a very dignified, rather quiet man. And after I finished pouring out all my emotion, he just said, "I like the play." It was just another play to him, but for me, it was the beginning of everything.
Yeah. I think as well, when you say that, critics, they're just there to do one thing. They either just share if they liked or didn't like the play they'd go. But for some reason, they're very influential in what they do to, like you said, to one's life.
Yes, if he'd hated the show, and there were some people who really just disliked it, it was a flimsy little thing. I mean, everything I'd written before was better. I mean, I just wrote it for 2 nights in a bar. It wasn't meant to be dissected or analyzed or criticized. It was, and in fact, when just before the critics came, I panicked. I thought, "Oh my God, I'm going to be reviewed for the first time by all the New York critics with this little piece I wrote to be done in a bar for 2 nights, and I'm going to be judged on this." But he liked it. But if he'd hated it, it would have been devastating, because that whole dream would have been over, and I don't think we would have continued doing shows in that bar. I don't know what would have happened. I like to think that ultimately I would have found some way in. I would have figured out something eventually, but thank God it happened.
Well, thank God indeed. I
Yeah,
mean,
we wouldn't be talking right now.
I know. Tell me about it. I mean, this is what I feel like. I feel like I'm in your position as well because I mean, at the moment, I like to say I'm a playwright, and I've just
Okay.
finished doing a one man play
Ah,
about finished one play, which was published as well. Which I was like, oh
ah.
my god, oh my god, this is
Well, you're
amazing.
ahead of me. You're ahead of me when I was your age. You're ahead. I'd be very jealous.
Yeah, and it's just, but I haven't been critiqued yet, and that's my one thing that
Uh,
we're gonna one day hopefully have a better outcome.
yeah, so the
Uh,
thing is, really, in a way, as much as it was my 20s, it was so difficult when you have a dream and you want something so badly, and you just can't. You feel like you can get a break, and everything goes against you. The night that you finally get to, your sort of showcase for one night, and it's so important. Everybody's going to be there, and it pours rain, and nobody shows up, and
mm,
just you're constantly being slapped in the face, and but in a way, in a certain sense, it all worked out. That it wasn't until I was 31 that I got the critics to come see me, because I really had a long apprenticeship, and perhaps if I'd had that opportunity at 25, I may not have been ready. I worked very hard at improving and learning and growing and being influenced by different people. And so when that moment of reckoning came, they were seeing a rather finished performer, and
mhm.
so that was good, worked out.
Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valegewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valegewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. What would you say is the most, in your career, what moment stands up for you as the most challenging moment, where it'd be like a nerve-wracking moment or something gone wrong? And but what I mean by challenging is like anything in your career. Do you recall any moment that was a challenging moment?
Constantly. Well, let's see. I sometimes there are different things. There's been the productions like that you pin so many hopes and dreams on, and you can almost always tell when there's a play, you know, where everybody's emotions are so keyed up on this means life or death. It's usually big flop. I don't know why that is. A number of years ago, I was hired to write a new book to the musical Taboo, which had been a hit in
Yeah,
London,
yeah.
and there
Boy
was small
George was it?
production. Boy George, yeah, and it had been a rather modest kind of production I don't know, I wouldn't call it a fringe theater, but it was kind of site specific, and it was fun. And the American personality Rosie O'Donnell wanted to produce it. She loved it. She loved Boy George. He meant a lot to her when she was young, and so she produced it on Broadway. But she felt that the book to the show, the script, was wanting, so she hired me to write a whole new book to the show, and I was leery because usually that doesn't work. In this case, it didn't. But anyway, we worked all so hard on it, and it was just fraught with so much emotion. And I don't know, the critics just hated it, and it ran about 100 performances. But and yet it's funny, and I find when I've been really unhappy on a project, I can't really even adequately judge it. So to me, I thought Taboo was kind of lousy because I had such bad associations and knew all the compromises, etc. And yet, people like Stephen Sondheim saw it, and Tony Kushner, and they loved it. I was shocked. And and in fact, there's been, I mean, the original Broadway cast album and posters are kind of collector's items, and I've met people say, "Oh, I was at 64 of the 100 performances." Really? So yeah, who am I? Who am I to judge? But that was very, very, very painful, and because of that, I've shied away from ever working on a Broadway musical again. I've had offers, and some of them turned out to be great successes, but you know probably if I worked on it, it wouldn't have been. I don't think I really had a gift for it. And I don't know. And then there's been shows. There was a play that I wrote a number of years ago that called The Tribute Artist. And we all thought it was awfully good. And the critics just didn't care for it. And I had all sorts of fantasies that it was going to move to Broadway, and I'd win all sorts of awards, and we all thought it was really good. I think it was a bit ahead of its time, and I was about 60 years old when that failed, and I was terribly disappointed. And I don't know, there was probably other things going on in my life or my body or whatever, turning 60, that I'm usually so resilient. Usually after I've had a failure, I'm pissed off and furious and raging at the unfairness of it all or whatever for about 3 weeks. Then I get over it. This lasted a long time. And I really was in kind of a late midlife crisis that was started from that, but it was probably other things going on as well. And yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm answering your questions, but
No,
it was a challenge to get past it. And I had to do some real thinking and change my mind about the importance of things, and yeah, just in fact, I mean, how do I say this without coming off arrogant? But I started doing cabaret performing and singing and doing more of that after that, during that period. And so I traveled all over. I was in about 4 different countries and about 37 different cities, and I'd never really toured before after Vampire Lesbians. And so I started meeting a lot of people after the show, and they would say to me, I was still kind of in this weird, fragile place of feeling that everything I'd done in my life was big failure, and what, is that all there is, and what does it all mean, and all that endless rumination that gets you nowhere. But anyway, I would do my cabaret act, and afterwards people would come up to me and say, I was in a production of your play Psycho Beach Party, and when I was in college, and because of that I came out to my parents. Or a girl would say, I stole a collection of your plays from the library, and it made such an impact on me that I decided to become a writer. I mean, just stuff like that. And I was, particularly when you're feeling so vulnerable and like a big, failure, it was wonderful affirmation to me. And I thought, well, maybe that's a good legacy then. And it's okay. And maybe, I'm being a little tough on myself.
Well, you can say you're a Tony Award nominee. You
Yes,
can say
and a Sundance Festival Award winner.
yes. You
Uh,
can call yourself that. I
yes.
mean, come on. But going on to the so hopefully I say this right. Um, is it Tale of the Allergist Wife? Is it how you say that?
Yeah. Yep.
And that play just shot off, went to the Tony Awards,
Yeah.
got some nominations. You got nominated. I remember so distinctly. It was actually this morning. It was on a video but so distinctly, even though it was this morning.
This
What am I
morning
talking
you
about?
remember it.
Yeah,
Wow.
so distinctly because it was this morning. There was a video of you at the Tony Awards presenting your play,
Yeah.
and
So cool.
yeah, where's your hair gone? Because it was like, I don't know what it was. I don't know. It was the
All
picture.
right, all right. Now you're a terribly rude young man to bring that up. No, and it's embarrassing. No, about I had when I was young, I had big, thick, full hair, and then I started going bald at about late 30s. And then I started shaving my head like you often do, and you're losing your hair. And then I don't know, when was it? About 20 years ago. I can't at a certain point, it's hard to remember what's 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I don't know what the fuck. Anyway, I had hair transplants, and now I've got this lush, gorgeous hair. I mean, it's all mine, but they took it from the back of my head and put it in the front of my head. And I tell you, that's one of the best decisions I ever made. You
There's
know,
nothing wrong with that.
I'm
Nothing
really,
wrong with that.
really glad I really glad I did that. It gave me much more confidence, and I wanted to yeah, I guess how old, let's say I was in my mid 50s maybe at the time or something like that. And I I wanted to look in the mirror one more time and see basically the young person I had been. And so I'd had some work done, and particularly the hair transplants. Is really, I would proselytize that, for if you can get the money together to do that, for those of you out there in the ether who thought I accept being bald. It's cool. It's cool. And for many people it's great, and it looks very sexy and it's wonderful. But for me, it didn't really work, and I wish I'd done it earlier. And it was, it made me feel good. But it's embarrassing when on like social media, when people post selfies of themselves with me from the 90s, and they look great, but I'm bald or whatever. And
Mm.
it's embarrassing because I don't want people, I want people to forget. I want them to just erase the period where I was
Yeah.
bald.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. When I was in school, I was about 16 years old, 16, 17. And after you finish your, in here's GCSEs, you can either have a choice to go to um, a second, stay another 2 years, but they call it sixth form. So it's like the oldest section of school in the UK, or you go to a college. But I stayed on. And I was taught, so I picked drama, and they wanted to do a school production of Annie, and I went for the role of
Daddy Warbucks.
Rooster.
Oh, return.
No, went for no, but then they gave me Daddy Warbucks,
Oh,
and yeah, and before the auditions, my drama teacher came up to me and said, because she knew I was a fan of Daniel Day-Lewis at the time, she was like, "Oh, Rhys is going into the method acting now," and I was like, oh, "Okay." She went, "Oh, Rhys, before the audition, if you were to get Daddy Warbucks, would you shave your head?" And I jokingly said, "Yeah, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, yeah, no problem." But I believed I was gonna go for Rooster, get Rooster, because
right.
that was my part. And then after the auditions were done, I went to the pub with my dad. And then as we were coming out of the pub, I get a phone call from another teacher who was actually a friend of mine saying, "Oh, Rhys, you got the part of Daddy Warbucks. Congratulations." And I was like, and I went, "Ah, fuck." So it just went
Did you shave your head?
all right off, completely
Wait,
right to the skin.
a school
Yeah.
play? They made you do that for a school play? Wow.
Yeah, well, they didn't make me. I thought, because I said yes, and then I was like, oh wait, I can't go back on my word. And there was rumors going around the school that, oh my God, Rhys is gonna have he's gonna shave it all off. He's gonna shave it all off. So I'll never forget. It was a couple of days before the actual performance, and I've got very thick hair, so my hair just grows back so quickly. Um, what was it? It was like on a Sunday, so it was like a big main rehearsal before we moved into the theater, and it was like my friend who was a drama teacher, John. He said, right, we'll get there early and we'll proper shave it all off. We'll get hot water and everything. My other drama teacher, who's the director there, the girl playing Annie was there, who was only 2 years younger than me. The one who was playing my secretary Ellen, she was like a year younger than me. She was there, and they were all just watching as my hair is just falling to the floor, going,
Wow.
and everyone was there going, oh, oh. And then as soon as it was all finished, they just all looked at me and went, oh my God, Rhys, what have you done? It was like, well, there we go. That's
Grows
the
back,
nature.
grows back. Yeah.
So going staying on to the play then, what made you want to write this play? And did you knew at some point, either before it went on stage or sometime after, a couple of performances, did you realize that the tale of the Alligator's wife was going to be a success and go on to be nominated for Tonys?
Gosh. Well, I really, oddly enough, I'd had a very good career, as writing my plays that were kind of outrageous and with me, starring in them in a female role, and I've done well. Yeah, it's and I'd never really had the great dream of being on Broadway. That didn't mean that much to me. As long as I could earn my living and doing, theater and I thought I was successful. But anyway, there's circumstances started happening where I worked on a musical there's a very important nonprofit theater here in New York called Manhattan Theater Club that is they have their own Broadway house, and it's one of the top nonprofit theaters, I guess, really in the world in a certain sense. And I'd written the book to a musical for them that again wasn't terribly successful, and but I really hit it off with the artistic director of this theater, named Lynn Meadows, woman, and she said, on the opening night of that musical, when the reviews were not good, she said, I would like to produce your next and direct your next play, whatever it is, because I'm so fond of you. And I knew, it's a rather conservative theater, so I knew that Vampire Lesbians Part 2 would not probably be the best route to go. And I had this character that I had done in a solo show, this very raging upper middle class New York housewife. And so I thought, I'll write a play about her, that type of lady. And so I wrote this play really for the audience, the rather wealthy subscriber base of the Manhattan Theater Club. I really wrote it about them and for them, and so we did it at Manhattan Theater Club in their kind of second stage, and it was very well received. So then plans were made right away to move it to Broadway. And we had these wonderful, very well-known actors who were Linda Lavin and Michelle Lee, who were very famous from television, theater, and so then we moved to Big Broadway House, and it became a big hit and ran 2 years. It's I think it's it's the longest running comedy on Broadway for the past 25 years or something, but then there have been so few Broadway comedies on Broadway, so I don't know if that means that much. But anyway, it was very successful, and I got nominated for Best Play, and but it used to bug me though at times when people would say, I had this big success, and then people would say, oh, it's so wonderful that you're finally mainstream. Isn't it great that you're mainstream now? And they meant well, but it kind of bugged me. I thought that means like everything I've done for the past 30 years somehow didn't really count. It was all just kind of preparation for this play on Broadway, and that kind of bugged me. But then when you're making a lot of money, you get over it. You know,
Yeah, no, it don't matter.
and I was so used to, with the play being up there 8 times a week, which is really exhausting. And somehow lying on my sofa watching TV and looking at the digital clock saying, oh, it's 8:30. Oh gosh, they're only in the middle of Act One. And they got a long way to go, a lot of work to do. And I'm just sitting here, with my passive income coming in, and I got over whatever was bugging me, quickly, and it's really thrilling. It was thrilling. I wish every single person listening to us today could have a Broadway hit or a West End hit, I guess too. It's the most thrilling thing to hear. I my whole career had been small theaters, and I remember just sitting in the audience at the very first performance. It was selling out, and there was really no ticket for me, the playwright. So they kind of found a seat for me way on an obstructed view seat in like a balcony up way far on the right side of the theater, and I couldn't see the back of the stage from that, but I could see the entire orchestra of the auditorium and the whole balcony. And that was so weird for me to see all these people, 1,200 people, and hearing them all laugh at the same line that I'd written. And I just never thought that I could please that many people. I just, and a lot of it was, some of it was based on my family and the women in my family, and so some of it I just took verbatim from hysterical, rages that they'd go off on, and just go into the kitchen while it's happening and write it down really quickly. So a piece of paper towel that's a good line, because the women in my family are so articulate and funny, and so it was weird sitting there hearing stuff that my sister had said and hearing 1,200 people laughing at it. It was cool. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, you should hear my grandmother. Oh, she has a way with words. Let's just put it that way. She has a way with words.
And holiday weekends bring out the best and the worst.
Do you know what? In all fairness to her, she's the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, I've heard her drop the F-bomb so many times, the S-bomb. I mean, even the C-bomb as well.
Oh, hi, really?
Yeah, yeah. Honest to God, Charles.
Love that.
She's one of those people where obviously very working class. She's got two older brothers, and and you know what? Every time I hear a conversation with my grandfather and my grandmother, and they're bickering, and sometimes when you think of grandparents, or they're just bickering, and there's sometimes like very soft play on words, like, oh, you so and so, oh, you so and so. Nah, it's more down to the point that my nan could turn around and just call my grandfather a fucking piece of this, and then he goes, oh, you big nose fuck, see you next Tuesday. They've dropped the C bomb.
Really? They talk like that to each other, really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and he'll go at it, and I'm just thinking, let me get the notepad and pen. One moment, please. Yeah, carry on.
That's the thing. Yes, I remember there was a holiday. We were and we were all stuck in this one. My aunt was very old and kind of invalid and just so grumpy and sour, and she it was like a 4th of July, a big weekend for us here, and we always just wanted to be somewhere else, but we were sitting with the old lady in this uncomfortable it had been her dining room, but she turned it into a bedroom because it was easier when she was really old to be near the kitchen, and we were so uncomfortable sitting on like this day bed with no back, but we're there, and suddenly she and my sisters were both sitting there, and at one point my aunt said, oh, I'm just a loser of the world, and my sister Margaret just flipped out, and she said, you think you're the loser of the world? I'm the loser of the world because I'm here with you. And she went off on this tirade, and it was just brilliant. It was brilliant. And my oldest sister, Betsy, who'd always been the one who really caused trouble, was sitting back thinking, oh my God, for the first time, it's not me that's being hysterical. And of course, I run off into the kitchen and grabbing paper towel, looking for a pen that works, because one of the things with the old people is none of their pens ever work, So
Yeah.
I was trying to write down, I'm the loser of the world. And I put it all verbatim into the
Yeah.
allergist's wife. And the audience is just screaming.
I could just see you now, just saying, just slow down, slow down. I can't keep up.
Say that again, please. Repeat that.
Yeah. Well,
That's
do you
great.
know,
The
I
best,
did.
really, the best lines do come from life. Really,
Mm.
they do.
Oh
You just
yes.
really, you have to have an ear for it and to listen because I should plug what I'm really doing right now is I have a memoir that just came out this past month called Leading Lady, the memoir of a most unusual boy. And it's doing quite well here in the States. I'm not sure. Well, it's on Amazon and all that, so I guess you can buy it anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So if it's on all this platforms, and it's my memoir, and uh, people will say like, oh, you've had such a fascinating life and everything, but I really do believe everybody's life is worth telling, but it really is kind of how you listen or perceive things, and I guess more than anything, whether it's as playwright or memoirist or cabaret singer, I love narrative. I'm just hooked on narrative and storytelling, and I while I'm living an experience, I'm turning it into narrative. It's
Mm.
happening immediately. I just start. I see everything at the beginning, middle, and end, and so it just. I do believe that if you have a way of looking at things, everybody's story is worth it. Nobody's life is boring. It's just how you write it, or
Mm.
what you pick out of it. The line that what exactly the outrageous line that your mother said, and somebody's reaction, and if you really are listening and paying attention, it's fascinating and will be fascinating to other people.
Yeah. There's one other thing before I mention Die Mommy Die. Um, there's another. There was an individual that popped up, and you mentioned Psycho Beach Party, and Amy Adams, his name popped up,
Yeah, she was
and
in
it
it.
was one of her earliest
Mhm.
films she ever done. So I just wanted to ask you, what was it like to, if you did, to be honest with you, I haven't seen the film. What was it like to work with Amy Adams at an earlier stage?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was one of the first things she'd done, and her, she had a nude scene in it at one point. I mean, it's a zany comedy. At one point, she's like the kind of the bitchy pretty girl, mean girl, yeah, in the group, and the guy who's she's likes, and they're beefing back and forth, and he accidentally tugs at her bathing suit and it comes off, and you don't actually see anything, but it's clear that she's naked, and she gets all runs off, and I think you see a little bit of her ass, but her mother was on the set that day and very protective, and I didn't really have much to do with her, but she was so talented. You just know, like, that girl's very special. But what was interesting is that she had background in musical theater. She, as we've seen in the Enchanted movies, she
Mm.
can sing and dance. And in this movie, in the plot, she's got this mean girl, and then there's a character of this kind of Marilyn Monroe like movie star, Bettina, who's run away from her studio to the beach, and there's like a big luau scene, and there's like a dance competition, and so the movie star ends up being in kind of a dance competition with this mean girl, and the movie star wins, and however, the actress playing the movie star was an actress who could move a little bit, basically, but Amy Adams could really dance, and so it was kind of it's kind of screwed up in the movie when you're watching it, because clearly suddenly Amy Adams starts dancing and she's like got 110 teeth in her mouth and hair's going, and she's fantastic, and clearly she's a winner, and the girl playing the movie star just kind of moving around a little, but it makes no sense at all. But you could see that this Amy Adams was very, very unique. And then also the lead in the movie was an actress, Lauren Ambrose, who became well known on the show 6 Feet Under after the movie was made, and she was marvelous in it too. We had a bunch of great young people starting out.
Mm. The reason why I wanted to mention that, obviously, Die Mommy Die, it first performed on stage in 1999 in July. But another reason why I wanted to mention is obviously because it was made into a film,
Yeah.
and not long ago, I think if only just very recently, Bill Kenwright, who produced the film, sadly
Yeah,
passed away.
just passed away. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
wish I'd known him. He was in London, and I I think I may have met him one time. One time I went to London, possibly, but I just didn't know him. And we had several different producers, and I was impressed that, oh, Bill Kenwright, because he was so successful. And but it's frustrating sometimes when you work adjacent with somebody, or even when you work with them, and you just, the way circumstances are, you just don't get to know them. You're working so quickly, particularly on an indie film where you shoot something in 20 days, 21 days. I mean, the director of Die Mommy Die, of the movie, Mark Rucker, was a stage director. It was his one and only film, and he was just a lovely person, and we got along so well. And he just did a great job with this movie. And then he died young. Uh, I think he suffered. I didn't realize it because I didn't know him that well. But I think he suffered from depression, and I think I think it was an accidental overdose of medications, maybe a combination that he shouldn't have taken accidentally, and like that happens. And I just thought, oh, I liked him, but didn't really know him. He was in California, I was in New York, but we had a lovely time. We were so
mm,
completely in sync, and he gave me this great gift of wanting to make this movie, because he had admired me from my work in the theater, and wanted to see if he could put it on film. And yeah, but there are a number of people like that die. I think, oh, damn it, I wish we spent more time together, got to
mm,
know them more, because they were so special.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Same with Bill Kenwright, fascinating man. My God, all of his achievements. Never,
oh
never,
yeah.
never knew him.
Well, it was interesting because my family, obviously, he was into his obviously you call it soccer over there, and he was into his
Yeah.
football. And my family are, obviously, he was the chairman of Everton Football Club. And my family are big Everton fanatics,
Uh,
and it was just mad that someone like Bill Kenwright, who goes into the world of football, and you find out he's a big theatre guy. And I was really proud of that. I was really proud of the fact that my family supported a team that got a chairman who was a big time theatre
right.
fanatic in itself. So I was like, "Whoa, yes, a theatre and a football club to support, yes." And it was really sad, and I think the world of theatre and the world of football lost a great person, I
Yeah.
believe.
Important man. Yeah.
Yeah. So with Die Mommy Die, when it when it got into the stage and then it was going to be made into the film, how did that process come about? Was you really was it just another day in the office for you? Because I think you've already
No,
made another. No.
no. Well, we had made this movie, a Psycho Beach Party, and it had been a stage play and I had played the lead. It was a very, very stylized piece on stage. And so it's a homage to I don't know if you're probably too young to know that Gidget had been a hit TV series with young Sally Field in the 60s, and a series of movies. It was all the kind of like beach party, kids on Southern California on the beach. So I had played the young girl lead, on stage. And then, years later it became a movie, and it was just not. We all knew there was not going to be that stylized, like where I was going to be playing this part, but the director Bob King and the producers wanted me in the movie, so we kind of created more of a thriller plot in the movie that was is quite different, and nothing really happens in the stage play, but in the movie there's a killer on the loose, serial killer. So therefore there had to be a police detective. So I turned that into a part for me of this kind of Susan Hayward, tough police chief, Captain Monica Stark, and so that became my role. And so anyway, so we made that movie, but it was a supporting role, and I had very little to do with it, basically. And then I did this around the exact same time. We did this play in LA of Die Mommy Die, basically because I was going to be in LA making the movie of Psycho Beach Party, and my friend Ken, who had directed my plays in New York, was living in LA, and said, well, while you're here, maybe we should do a play. And so I quickly wrote this Die Mommy Die play, and these producers came to see it and wanted me to adapt someone's novel as a movie. And quickly we saw that it wasn't something we wanted to do. And then when they saw me on stage, they thought, oh, well, let's make a movie of your play. It was all very quick, very quick. And so also one of the producers, Dante, his romantic partner was Mark Rucker, who was a stage director who had just gone to film school, and he had been an admirer of mine. And he told me later is that he had this fantasy of wanting to do an old-fashioned Hollywood type woman's picture, as they used to call it, starring Charles Busch. So all those pieces lined up, and it was all very, very, very fast, because often even a low budget indie film can take years to get together. I know I've got a couple projects like that are just going on for years, but this happened within months. And I wrote the adaptation. I learned a lot from doing Psycho Beach Party about adapting a play to a movie. And I would dare most people to look at the movie Die Mommy Die and even think that it had roots on stage, because it's very filmic. And that was just glorious. I tell you, it was maybe the 21 of the most marvelous days of my life. Often you find when you don't appreciate something till long after it's done. I appreciated it as I was living it. Every single day I thought, oh my, I can't believe I get to play a big love scene. Oh, today I get to be taken away by the police in a squad car. Oh, today I'm shooting a musical number. I mean, it was just absolutely, I was in a state of rapture the entire time, and it came out very well. And I won this big award at Sundance Film Festival, and that was a great shock to me. And it's just, I wish, unfortunately, and now with Bill Kenwright's death, they'll make it even more improbable, but the movie hasn't been available for streaming, and it was tied up with all sorts of legal issues. And I thought we had solved them all, and Kenwright's company did a restoration of the original print, and I thought, oh, we're in business now. And somehow it's again caught up in all sorts of legal issues, and I doubt it's ever going to be resolved. It's too bad, because it's a fun movie, and it's really the best representation of what I do.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, we will go and see it. We will see it one day.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
you can find it on Amazon, or there are DVDs of it if you still have a DVD player. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I was watching. I think it was an interview you did with Liza Minnelli,
Oh, yeah.
and I am right in thinking you two are friends. That's the.
My sister never quite understood. She would say to me like, well, your friend Liza Minnelli. I said, she's not my friend. Yes, I've probably been with her in certain different encounters, or even had dinner with her, so maybe 7 times. But am I really a friend? Show business is very strange that way. You know what I mean? You have to really figure out what your definition of friendship is. because yeah, yeah, I'm not in her circle.
Mm.
Well, I like her a lot, and I haven't seen her in many years. But there was a period where we have mutual friends, and or I tried to involve her in some piece, or she'd come to a show of mine, and very nice and such great enthusiasm. But I kind of think a friend is someone that just say, "Oh, you want to come over tonight?"
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So, well, I don't know. Whereas I wish there was some other word that's between acquaintance and friend. I don't know. Is there one? I
No,
don't know.
I was gonna say would it be acquaintances, but it's
A little
I
bit
would
more than acquaintance, but less than friend. I don't know what
mm,
that. I think we're missing a word there.
it wouldn't be civil, would no, no, civil's not the word. That wouldn't be the word.
No,
No.
I
Oh,
don't know.
it'll probably come to us in one
Yeah,
way or the other.
yeah. But they're in showbiz, it's
Yeah.
like that. Though you meet so many fascinating people, and they come to your shows, and we're also everybody's so theatrical too. And I love you, darling. And, oh, you're so fabulous. But you have to kind of know that where that ends, and
Mm.
there's been some times where oh, I I, I was at the do you know what have you heard of Turner Classic Movies? It's a all
Yeah, TCM.
chain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
me and my grandfather used to watch all the westerns on there all the time.
yeah. Well, anyway, they have a big film festival in LA every year, and I went out there one time. I was a guest, and I met Kim Novak, great legendary star Kim Novak, and we just hit it off big. Oh my, you would have thought. I mean, we were just speaking so intimately with each other the entire night. Just in this way, we went so far beyond acquaintance that night of just heartfelt talking about our sorrows and our vulnerability, and it was insane. But she's very charismatic even at 80 years old at the time, and beautiful and just mesmerizing. And so I kind of got caught up in it. And she's also a visual artist as well. She's a very fine painter, and so I thought we were really going to be great friends. She was living like in Oregon or something, and so I would, she gave me her email address, and so I was emailing her and sending her videos of me as a performer, and she was lovely and saying, oh, she's very kind of cosmic, and oh, your radiance and your private journey and all this stuff. And I was just hooked on Kim Novak. Oh, we're friends. We're friends, my friend Kim. And but I don't know if about 4 volleys back and forth, I got the feeling that she had enough of the drag queen from New York. It was taking her longer to get back to me, and then finally, like, no response. I I get it. She people have their circle,
Mm.
whatever. They don't always need one other person. Occasionally it works, but sometimes but it was nice. I've saved the emails when my dear friend Kim was so responsive.
Last question now for the podcast. And Charles, I really had a blast doing this
Yeah.
podcast with you. I really enjoyed it. And the question I've always asked people, all my guests that have come on the show, and I'm going to ask you this now. How do you look back on your career?
Well, I've really had to be reflective because well, it sounds like I'm just promoting this book. Having written my book, Leading Lady: The Memoir of a Most Unusual Boy, that's available on Amazon. Having written it, it does force one, even if you're not terribly reflective, you have to be reflective and look back, and you don't want to come off as an asshole, and so you have to look at examine times when you really felt wronged, and that you were 100% in the right and they were absolutely wrong, and you kind of have to examine that and at least fake it in writing that, oh, well, the other person had a point of view. And even if you're trying to fake it, you do have to kind of consider it and think, well, maybe I was a little a little jealous and sort of touchy and just waiting for that person to do something obnoxious. And when they did, I seized up on it, stuff like that. And, there are a bunch of places where I had really felt totally justified and being in the right. And now saw a clear image. But it's been, I'm just truly, I'm not saying this just to be modest or whatever, but I really have been so fortunate to be able to pursue this rather eccentric career where I have certain fantasies and it can make them and live them out in reality, in film or stage. And and I have an odd kind of fame. It's a very rather sweet form because I'm unknown to the multitudes, and yet my core group of people who think I'm very special, I'll pit their enthusiasm against any huge legends, fans, and it's really sweet. It's just, and maybe it's for the best. Maybe having that kind of grotesque fame where you can't walk down the street, without people wanting to punch you or something, or kiss you or fuck you, whatever. Maybe I remember I interviewed Patrick Swayze for a magazine, and he would say he was so nice and sweet, but he said that because of the kind of action movies he made, that if he was in a bar with his wife, there'd be some asshole would want to try to pick a fight with him so they could punch him and say, "Oh, I took out Swayze." They literally couldn't walk down the street without somebody trying to pick a fight with him. Isn't that awful?
Yeah.
So anyway, I just my strange cult fame is, how wonderful it is. It should be for everybody should be able to walk down the street, and maybe every third day someone come up to you and say, "Oh, I love you. I think you're wonderful." Isn't that a marvelous thing to happen? It happens about every 3 days, and I'm really grateful.
Thank you.